Welcome to We're Not Doing a Podcast, another episode. Mark Weber here with Jarrett Lease, and Jarrett with the fresh haircut. Rumor has it you went all the way out to Long Island for it because despite living in New York City since the fall of 2014, you have yet to get a haircut in Manhattan. Is that true?
I trust nobody when it comes to cutting my hair. I think, honestly, my entire life, I've had maybe kind of one hand the amount of people who have cut my hair. I am very particular with who cuts my hair. So, yes, I don't get my haircuts in New York City. I go to my special place on Long Island, and I do it that way. And
Why don't you give them a shout out?
Paragon Hair Salon in Greenville, Long Island. It's my spot. Always will go there forever. Maria cuts my hair. I will always be loyal to Paragon Hair Salon because...
But there's so many places in the city, and sometimes you need a haircut before you go somewhere. How do you not have someone in Manhattan? I mean, I know it is difficult to find a good barber, one that you could trust. I found one in Murray Hill, and I've been going to them since, even though it's 60 blocks away. But I spent the time and I looked and I found one in my vicinity. To go back out to Long Island every time just seems exhausting.
Better to just avoid the anxiety, getting a new haircut from a new person, worrying if they're going to screw up my hair. So it's a weird trait of mine, but I'm always going to stick to it. I will stay loyal to the people who cut my hair forever. And if Maria eventually decides to retire, which will hopefully be in 40, 50 years from now, I'll find another person to cut my hair in 40 years from now. So I'm sticking to my people. I'm a loyalist, as you know, Mark.
All right. So feel free to comment on YouTube, Spotify, or just message us on any social media platform except for Jared on Twitter, and give us some suggestions for some actual barbers in New York City that he could go to. Crazy that he's been here for 9 years almost and has yet to find a barber in here. What a very peculiar young man.
But Mark, going back to our days in Syracuse, the person who would cut hair in Syracuse gave every guy the same exact haircut. So that's why.
But then you couldn't say yours was bad because yours looked like every single person at Garbo's. It was the best. You walked in, you got the Garbo's cut, you walked out. Everyone looked the same. No girl could judge you for having a bad haircut because guess what? Your haircut looked like every other guy. So you're saying, oh, my hair looks bad. How about that guy over there? How about that guy over there? Are you kidding me? I love the Garbo's cut. You can go to Castle Court. Every single guy had the Garbo's cut. I loved it. I think New York City should just do the same thing. The world would be better if we all just got the same haircut.
No, we all have requests. We have our certain style. That's why I'm particular.
Oh, your style is so special that you can't go to anyone else.
Nope. I'm going to stay loyal. Not going to change me.
All right, still, please reach out to the two of us. You can reach out to me, and I would gladly give Jared a recommendation. I'm a big fan of Euro Barbershop on 28th and 2nd. Shout out to them. But Jared clearly needs a lot of recommendations and could give some because I just can't imagine not being able to walk in a barbershop in New York City to get a haircut. All right, moving on finally to the New York Knicks, even though I could discuss this topic all the time. And aside from Long Island barbershops, one topic that Jarrett loves to talk about all the time is what a Knicks cadet. Now, you have 4 options, 3 choices. Who do you think the Knicks should get, will likely get, or should say, hasta la vista, no way? And you have 4 choices. Karlanthonytowns for 3 spots. Chrispaul, Zachlavine, and BradleyBeal. Who do you think they should get? Who do you think they will get? And who do you think they should not go for?
Before I give you my answer, how many hours today were you preparing to say stars before we got on the podcast? Because I know you've been waiting all day just to say that in front of me.
The second you texted me during my lunch asking for the rundown, and you turned down my basketball topic, which was a good choice. That's why you discussed things before and why this is not a dictatorship on the rundown. It is it's a democracy on how we choose, I would say. Democratic approach. That's the proper term because I forgot before. You can't say stars, Knicks when it comes to Jared without saying stars. There's no R. It's an H. Hard H.
That is very true. So now going to my answer, I think the guy that they should go and get is Zachlavine. And I think the guy that they probably will go and get is Zachlavine, because you're looking at these rumblings now with BradleyBeal potentially becoming available. It looks like the Miami Heat are at the top of his wish list. And the reason why I think Zachlavine should be the guy that the Knicks get, it's really just based off of his contract. It's not a great contract, but it's a lot better than a guy like BradleyBeal's. With this whole new CBA that's going to be put into effect over the coming years, if the Knicks were to go and get BradleyBeal, that severely hamstrings your ability to potentially make any other possible move down the road. And does BradleyBeal really make the Knicks a championship contender? I don't know. He makes them better, but I don't think he makes them title contenders. Whereas Zachlavine, I think if you get him, he makes you a lot better. And I think you can also have some more flexibility to do something down the road. So I would take a risk and swing a trade for a Zachlavine this summer. I think this is the summer, though, Mark, that they do have to go swinging. I don't think they should just stand pat and continuously wait, because you just don't know when that next guy will be available.
Is BradleyBeal your option for the guy they should not go for based on the contract, as you mentioned? Is that the one out of the four they should not go for?
It's just based solely off the contract, because it severely hamstrings your ability to do stuff down the road. And if BradleyBeal makes you a championship contender, I would say absolutely push your chips into the middle of the table and go get him. But, but also when you talk about BradleyBeal, he's a guy who has not been very durable over the past several years. He's missed a ton of games. And look, if he were to come to the Knicks, he'd be coming to a much better situation. But you look at him with the Washington Wizards, has he really elevated that franchise?
Not since John Wall left.
Exactly.
He hasn't made it past the first round since he left.
He hasn't done a whole lot. So if you're going to make a trade, I think you should try to hold on to as many assets as you can for the future, where Zachlavine, to me, I think would be the better option. And I'm totally against Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't want anything to do with him. I mean, there's just something off about that guy.
Who would you rather, Towns or Beal on the Knicks?
Beal. Because I think with Beal, you wouldn't have to give up as much in a package because of the fact that he has such a crazy bad contract. You would only maybe give up a couple of draft picks and maybe one or two young players, maybe a Mitchell Robinson, maybe Emmanuel Quickly, one or those two guys, not both. But Karl-Anthony Towns, to me, I've never been a fan of his.
You've never been a fan of Karl-Anthony Towns, even when he was going number one in the 2015 draft. You were never a fan of Karl-Anthony Towns. I find that NBA, unbelievably hard to believe.
In the NBA, I haven't been a fan of his. In college, of course I was a big fan of him.
After his rookie season, you weren't a fan of him. After his first few seasons where he looked like the greatest thing since David Robinson and Shaq, you weren't a big fan of Karl-Anthony Towns. Yeah. I find that very hard to believe.
He hasn't done a whole lot with Minnesota, so I'm not high on Karl-Anthony Towns, but we'll see what the Knicks do. Who's your guy that you think the Knicks should go? Because you are
first off, I just want to bring up, not only did Towns win Rookie of the Year, he also is a 2-time All-NBA player, 3-time All-Star. I mean, this is a guy that also played 82 games every one of his first 3 seasons. So the durability, I assume, wouldn't be a reason that you weren't high on Towns. Aside from that, before I give my answer, you mentioned LaVine twice as the guy that you think they will get and should go for. Other than LaVine, where do you think LaVine lies? Is he the guy that they should go for and will, or is he the guy that you just think they will get? And other than LaVine, which one of those 4 guys fits?
I think both LaVine and Beal do fit. I just think it's going to come down to, with Beal, I think he's going to end up going.
What about Chris Paul then? Where does he fit?
I mean, Chris Paul's not at this stage of their careers. Chris Paul would be coming off the bench. You're not starting Chris Paul with Jalen Brunson. That's a terrible combination. At this stage of Chris Paul's career, he's a bench player. For the Knicks, he'd come off and be in the second unit. So I'm not even lumping Chris Paul in the same category of a Karl-Anthony Towns, a Zachlavine, or a Bradley Beal. So Chris Paul, if you want to sign him as a piece coming off the bench, sure, why not? But
Chris Paul is a huge piece to come off the bench. I mean, Chris Paul, you could actually argue, out of those four guys, is still the best player, even though he'll be 38 years old next season. Chris Paul also had 13 points and 8 assists last season, something that no NBA player has done at that age in the history of the league. So if you have Chris Paul as your backup point guard, you're talking about a major luxury right there.
But Chris Paul, that's a nice signing. This is an off season for the Knicks
the Knicks may need a nice signing.
But that's in addition to one of the trades. You could sign Chris Paul in addition to making a trade for one of those three. Your big offseason acquisition is not just Chris Paul. I mean, that's just not – what does that really do? It makes you better, but I'm talking about making a trade for one of those available options. So I think Zachlavine, I think he fits with the Knicks. He's a guy who provides scoring punch. I also think he's a better defender than Bradley Beal. So that would be a bonus for playing for Tom Thibodeau. And I think it could work. I think it could work. It's a tough contract, but it's better than Bradley Beal's. But I think it's going to be Zachlavine because I don't think Bradley Beal's going to be a Knick. I think Bradley Beal's going to end up with the Miami Heat. And Karl-Anthony Towns, he's third on the totem pole for me. So I'm willing to take the risk for a Zachlavine this offseason. Let's see what they can do.
All right, I'm going to answer this question a little more properly than Jared. I'm going to say Levine is the guy that they should get. I do agree with that. I'm shocked. I'm still a bit confused at what changed your mind going into this offseason, because during the trade deadline, you weren't really buying him as much. So I'm going to go Zachlavine is the guy that the Knicks should go for. Karl-Anthony Towns is the guy that the Knicks will likely get, given his relationship with Leon Rose, the fact that his father went to Leon Rose's first game with the Knicks. That's a pretty big deal. And I think that the guy they should absolutely stay away from is Bradley Beal, not just because of the contract situation, the fact that he only played 150 games in the last 3 seasons. I think he's been kind of dwindling down. Bradley Beal is someone that you get when they're either really young and there's a lot of promise, or you get on the way down where they could be a piece of the team. I just don't know if I love the idea of Bradley Beal with Jalen Brunson and building the team around that, because Julius Randle likely not going to be with the team if they make a move for Bradley Beal.
That would be a difficult big three, in my opinion. Jalen Brunson with Bradley Beal and Julius Randle.
Well, it would be RJ, Beal, and Brunson. It'd probably be RJ, Brunson, and any one of those guys except for Chris Paul.
Well, the other thing also is, if you go and get Zachlavine, does that mean RJ Barrett's gone? Because, I mean, Zachlavine, he's more of a 3, whereas I don't think that would be able to work with RJ. So it's a tricky offseason. I would not want to be in Leon Rose's shoes this summer, because you feel like you kind of have to do something, but at the same time,
no, you have to do something. At least get a scorer from 3. At least someone who could stretch the floor.
Yeah,
you have to at least do that.
Well, yeah, but those are minor, those are nice moves. We're talking big game hunting. Do you push your chips in the middle of the table this offseason, or do you continue to wait? Do you continue to see what the situation? It's not going to be this summer, but down the road at the trade deadline, who knows what happens with a Zion Williamson in New Orleans or a Joel Embiid with the Sixers. That's where, how much longer do you continue to wait and keep holding on to those assets? And then you just push the chips in the middle this offseason. it's a risky game to play because once you push your chips in, that's it. You're going to war with what you got. And if you don't become a championship contender with a Zachlavine alongside a Jalen Brunson, you've really screwed up. So it's a really tough spot for Leon Rose to be in this offseason, but there's only so much longer you can be patient when it comes to holding on to your assets. It's a difficult spot, but that's why Leon Rose is getting paid the big bucks to be the Knicks president and not me.
This is a humongous offseason for the Knicks. Coming off a surprisingly great season, there's a lot of room for them to get a major star, especially in a year that they don't have a first-round pick, and this is the first time going into the draft that they don't have a first-round pick since 2016. Now, Jarrett discussed big game hunting. The Knicks really need to do that this summer, but next year, the Mets may go big game hunting based on a new report by John Heyman of the New York Post that they could potentially go for David Stearns as their next GM, and that may also mean a new manager in Craig Counsell. Jarrett, I know you've been calling for Billy Epler's head for the past month. How badly do the Mets need to make this move?
This is going to sound like a hot take, but I think it's more important that the Mets this offseason get David Stearns to be the president of baseball operations for the Mets than it is for the Mets to get Shohei Ohtani. The Mets have to get a legitimate front office guy to run this franchise because Billy Epler is running it into the ground. I've said it numerous times on this podcast, how awful this guy is. Every move he has made has just been dreadful. The pitching is just disastrous for the Mets. And this is such a pitching-rich organization. And you saw what Billy Epler did with the Angels. They had a top-heavy roster with Trout and Ohtani, and it meant nothing because they were just awful when it came to their pitching. David Stearns is the biggest move that the Mets can make, in my opinion, in the past 3 to 5 years, because it's great. Steve Cohen owns the Mets. He's got all the money in the world to spend on players.
What was the biggest move before that?
In terms of just signings or?
Well, just in general, you're saying past 3 to 5 years, what would be the biggest signing since? What would be the biggest move for the Mets until hopefully for you and for your sanity that they get a guy like David Stearns?
Well, it's the move that has to happen because this is a move that's about the long-term trajectory of this franchise. Steve Cohen always talks about long-term sustainable success. You can't have it unless you build a good farm system. And if you don't have a good president of baseball operations to continue to bring in talent into the farm system, you're just not going to go anywhere. You can't rely on free agency every offseason. Steve Cohen, it's great. He has all the money in the world to spend. They could go get Shohei Ohtani this offseason. They could go get Juan Soto the following offseason. This year, it's showing all the money to spend doesn't mean anything. The Mets have the highest payroll in the history of the sport, and they are honestly one of the worst teams that I've ever rooted for when it comes to Mets baseball. So, oh, please. There he goes. Here he goes.
For those of you wondering off camera, I'm doing the Tom Wamsgams crying face for the Mets with the highest payroll in baseball history. And 68 games into the season, still under 500. Just it's sad. It really is.
The worst. You're the worst. Well, they won a game. They won a game last night, which the Mets thoroughly embarrassed themselves, but they still found a way to win that game against the Yankees. So, look, the Mets are. They're not in a good place right now at all. Everything about the team is just a disaster. We'll see if they can turn around this year, but this offseason, it is all about bringing in a legitimate guy to run this franchise like a David Stearns. Steve Cohen needs to give him whatever he wants to lead this franchise moving in the right direction moving forward.
What's the plan if they don't get him?
Try to find another guy who can, I don't know, give a blank check to a Theo.
But is there anyone more perfect than David Stearns? His contract with the Brewers ends after this season. He's from Manhattan. His mother still lives in Manhattan. He grew up a Mets fan. His favorite Met of all time is Kevin Elster. I mean, this is a guy that is a legitimate Mets fan, unlike their owner, Steve Cohen.
You're unbelievable. When it comes to, look, if you don't get David Stearns, reach out to Theo Epstein. Offer him a stake in ownership.
That's not happening.
Theo's
not happening. Stearns is a lot more likely than Epstein. That's dreaming. Shohei Ohtani is more likely to be a Met than Theo Epstein will be the Mets GM. I generally don't think that's Theo Epstein's coming back. Once you go the private equity route, you're not going back.
No, maybe Theo. How about Theo Epstein? Can he become the commissioner of Major League Baseball and get this moron Rob Manfred out of here? I mean, Rob Manfred has, by the way, not to digress, Rob Manfred has ruined Major League Baseball. I mean, he's turned the sport into a clown show with everything that's going on. It's just, the sport's unrecognizable with this guy, Rob Manfred. And he hates the sport too. He can't speak publicly, which is Commissioner 101. You're on camera all the time. The guy can't speak a coherent sentence more days than not. I hate Rob Manfred, by the way. So for our audience, he's the absolute worst. He loved the Wilpons, but you could tell he's clearly targeting the Mets with Steve Cohen with all the crap that they're pulling with these umpires and with the banning of the sticky stuff crap and then the Jeff McNeil with the banned shift violation in the game again in the Subway Series. Rob Manfred's the worst. So maybe Theo Epstein, maybe he'll become the commissioner of Major League Baseball. That'd be positive, but David Stearns has to be the Mets president of baseball operations. So,
all right, moving on from that. I don't think any other topic will get Jared as excited as that, but Jared does love WFAN, so possibly. Craig Carton, in a sudden shock to the sports media world, announced that he is leaving WFAN at the end of this month with a show with Evan Roberts. And thanks to a tweet sent to me by Jared, Gary Myers is now reporting that Tiki Barber will be filling in for Craig Carton's spot to be with Evan Roberts. Jared, as a WFAN loyalist, how do you feel about this?
Well, look, Carton and Roberts, the show got great ratings, but Craig Carton's expertise clearly was not sports. So it was a weird dynamic. It obviously worked in the ratings, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But now hearing this news with Tiki Barber joining Evan Roberts, now you're breaking up two shows on WFAN, which I just don't think was necessary. I don't think it's going to work because Craig Carton, he finds ways to make anything work. He made it work with Evan Roberts, and they ended up being a good pairing. I think it'll be a solid show, Evan Roberts with Tiki Barber, but I just don't think it's a needle mover. And I don't think
be the more enticing show. Craig Carton's upcoming show, where he's on Fox Sports 1, which is currently going on, but he'll have a lot more energy into it. That show on FS1, the show with Tiki and Evan Roberts, or the rumored possibility show of Jerry Ferrara, also known as Turtle from Entourage, and Evan Roberts. What would be your show that you would watch?
I would be more interested, of course, with Jerry Ferrara, with Evan Roberts, as someone who absolutely loves Entourage. But even the one time when Jerry Ferrara filled in for Craig Carton, they did a show together, and it actually was a pretty good dynamic.
Can you imagine hearing in 2007 that the afternoon co-host of a WFAN show would be between Tiki Barber and Turtle from Entourage? What world are we living in? And obviously it has to be the show with Evan Roberts and Jerry Ferrara. I mean, that would just be absolutely electric. Jerry Ferrara seems like he actually knows about New York sports for an actor. He's really involved with the Knicks on Twitter. He tweets pretty much after every game. It's like him and Ben Stiller are the two biggest guys. Definitely be more interesting.
He knows his sports. He knows about the Yankees. He knows a good amount about the Mets. He's on top of his stuff when it comes to New York sports. And to answer your question, Craig Carton being on FS1, I'm always of the belief, local, trumps national when it comes to sports all day, every day. Local sports topics are the best. Hence, look at our podcast. We're not doing a podcast. We talk about New York sports. Sometimes we'll digress a little bit. We do with it or not with it topics outside of sports and other things, but local sports always move the needle. So look, Craig Carton, good for him. It's a great comeback story for him. But WFAN, I don't think they're making the right decision here. I would have preferred just having Evan Roberts be with someone who was working at WFAN, maybe a guy like a Sal Licata or a John Jastrzemski at the Ringer, because I think Evan is paired best with a guy who's also kind of a sports geek. I just think that's the best dynamic. And Joe Beningo, he's not coming out of retirement. He'll still do part-time fill-in, but that would be the best case scenario, but that's not going to happen.
All right, moving on from another local sports topic that a lot of people have been talking about. Matt Harvey is making a career change. Very interesting stuff. He recently retired from Major League Baseball, and now he is working for Newmark in commercial real estate, slinging those multifamily loans. Jared, could you imagine working next to Matt Harvey in any office setting or any professional player that has the status that Matt Harvey does?
It would certainly be interesting if I was sitting in my office one day and my phone were to ring and it would be like, "Hi, this is Matt Harvey from what's the name of the company he's working for?" Newmark. And he said, "Oh, I'm interested in purchasing some properties and stuff like that." It would be I would have to do a double take and be like, "Oh, it's another Matt Harvey." Like, no, the former Matt Harvey, the guy who I would absolutely love watching pitch for the New York Mets. But look, it's interesting for him. We'll see how long he ends up doing it. I think ultimately he's going to do this.
You're not confident in him doing it long term. You think he may be an analyst for SMY or somewhere else?
I think he's going to do real estate for a short period of time. He'll broker a couple of deals. It ultimately comes down to what's Matt Harvey's personality.
Well, he's not going to be he's not selling apartments or buildings. He's going to be trying to pitch people loans for multifamily properties. No. And he's already taking clients out to the Subway Series and like amazing seats. So we know why he got hired already as a managing director of a division at Newmark, which is just crazy. I can't imagine slaving your way there. Then all of a sudden Matt Harvey just comes off the baseball field and has his own office. That's a whole other debate, but that would be his job. He's going to be trying to get people to take out major loans on multifamily properties.
You know where Matt Harvey should really be working when it comes to real estate, right? Come on. Which firm?
I have no idea.
You should be working for A-Rod Corp.
Oh, that's a good one.
Alex Rodriguez, this is what Alex Rodriguez should be doing with his post-playing career now that he's got A-Rod Corp working in real estate. Any baseball player who is looking to find a second career, if they either didn't make enough money or blew through all their money, have a recruiting process of former baseball players and have a bunch of real estate agents, former ball players working for A-Rod Corp. It would be the biggest ego boost for A-Rod. Not that he needs any more of those, but that would be fun to follow. And that would be fun. That would be fun reality TV. It would also be fun to do some deals with A-Rod Corp with some former baseball players. So Matt Harvey, maybe reach out to Alex Rodriguez. He was a Yankee fan growing up.
And he is in the real estate game. I mean, with New York City multifamily properties, he's got that deal with some major landlords in the city. So that would be a good mix. And I think it would be very difficult to say no to Matt Harvey. And I think a lot of people will want to work with him. And that's why he got that managing director gig, because people want to say they worked with an all-star pitcher such as Matt Harvey. All right, moving on to with it or not with it. The Rangers hired Peter Laviolette. Now, hockey coaches, it's tough to find a coach that people really know. Laviolette has the third most wins of any active NHL coach. Does this make the Rangers with it or not with it for next season?
Not with it, really. It's just the move is just it's a solid move for the Rangers, but it's not a sexy hire. That's the other thing about it.
How is it not a sexy hire, Jared? What other coach would have been the sex? Joe Quenneville?
There really was no sexy hire.
But for hockey, this is the sexiest hire you can make. I mean, this is a guy that's been to 3 Stanley Cups.
When it comes to hockey moves and hiring head coaches, I feel like there's no sexy hires because a coach gets fired here, he goes to this job there. I feel like every legitimate NHL head coach has coached 5 or 6 different teams. It's like they just go through perpetual cycles of, like, same thing with Barry Trotz. He coaches the Islanders, he coached the Predators, he coached the Capitals. Every great NHL head coach, it's like a revolving door. So sure, I think Laviolette could make the Rangers a better team. They'll have the initial boost. You hire a new coach. We'll see how they do in the playoffs, but I just don't think this is a big time needle mover for the New York Rangers. We'll see how they do during the offseason. I think they definitely need to shore up some things, but we'll see. We'll see how Peter Laviolette does. It just goes to show you also how long this guy's been coaching. He was the Islanders coach, when we were, like 10, 11 years old?
Yeah, he was the coach many, many moons ago. That's the only team he did not take to the Stanley Cup until he started coaching the Washington Capitals recently, which leave it to the Islanders. And yes, he was their head coach when we were in 4th grade and when we were in 5th grade.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, another team that we root for that never does well. Well, you're a Yankee fan, so they do well sometimes. But when it comes to me, nothing goes well when it comes to sports. It's a perpetual cycle of shit. So,
all right. On that note, we're not doing a podcast. No more crying faces for me because I think Jarrett is going to find me and slap me in the face for doing the crying face during his Mets rant on David Stearns. That is it for us. For Jarrett Least, I am Mark Weber. Have a good night, everyone.